Under the warm Hawaiian sun, a house-flipping dream team was turning rundown Oʻahu properties into paradise showpieces. Tristyn and Kamohai Kalama, the charismatic husband and wife duo of HGTV's Renovation Aloha, seemed to have the perfect story. They were local kids made good, a couple who once struggled with debt but fought their way to real estate success. By 2018, they had begun flipping homes to support their young family, and their hustle paid off. In February 2024, HGTV launched Renovation Aloha to showcase the Kalamas' talents. Viewers were instantly hooked by the pair's chemistry and the dramatic transformations they achieved. We frequently post videos on topics like this, so don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to stay informed and never miss an update. Here were two native Hawaiian entrepreneurs breathing new life into neglected homes, all while infusing projects with the Aloha spirit. The show painted them as community heroes on a mission to help Hawaii's housing crisis, one flip at a time. But behind the tropical charm and heartwarming family scenes, a storm was brewing quietly. As Season 1 unfolded, some astute observers wondered, how were the Kalamas pulling off these massive renovations so quickly, in a state infamous for its glacial building permit process? On camera, Tristyn and Kamohai made it look easy, securing permits, knocking down walls, and selling homes for big profits in a matter of weeks. In one episode, they casually mentioned that permits were approved and a $10,000 structural repair was underway. In reality, that very project's permit was still pending approval at the time. The house was renovated and sold before city officials ever signed off. It wouldn't be long before the truth caught up to the charismatic couple. In early December 2024, a bombshell investigative report by Honolulu's Civil Beat exposed a pattern of permit-skirting practices behind Renovation Aloha's whirlwind renovations. The article detailed how the Kalamas had, time and again, started construction on homes without waiting for permits, or even without applying for the proper ones at all. Major structural work, new roofs, plumbing, and electrical upgrades, many of these had been done off the official books. One glaring example was the very first home featured on the show, a dilapidated Kalihi property the Kalamas turned into a multi-generational dwelling. According to the report, they combined two structures into one, lifted part of the house onto stilts, installed a brand new roof, and remodeled multiple kitchens and bathrooms, an enormous $425,000 overhaul as shown on TV. Yet the building permit they filed for that project told a very different story. It listed only new windows and a carport, with an estimated cost of just $80,000. In other words, the plan submitted to the city covered only a tiny fraction of what the Kalamas actually did. Honolulu's Department of Planning and Permitting was never asked to review or approve the structural changes that viewers watched with amazement. As the saying goes, it appeared the couple had decided it was better to ask forgiveness than permission. The revelations hit Hawaii like a shockwave. Here were beloved local stars, a native Hawaiian man and his wife, no less, apparently bending the rules on national television. Almost immediately, Honolulu officials reacted. On December 6, 2024, the city announced it was revoking the building permit for that Kalihi renovation featured in Episode 1. The planning and permitting director, Don Takeuchi Apuna, didn't mince words. The Kalamas permit application had been misleading, omitting critical work, and such tactics were unacceptable. This was a rare and drastic step for the city to take, especially on a completed home. What it meant for the Kalamas, or for the family now living in that house, was uncertain. Would the homeowners be forced to go back and get a new permit after the fact? Would further construction fixes be required? No one knew yet, but the message was clear. The county was putting its foot down. If the official response was swift, the public's response was explosive. The Renovation Aloha controversy became the talk of the islands. On local radio, at Honolulu dinner tables, and across social media, everyone had an opinion. Outrage and disappointment poured out from many locals. They had cheered on the Kalamas as embodiments of island values and entrepreneurship, and now felt betrayed. "We don't need that kind of hua. Wrongdoing here," one Hawaiian viewer lamented, using the native term for not doing what is right. To these fans, cutting corners on permits wasn't just a legal issue, it was an ethical one, a violation of community trust and safety. How could a couple who profess such love for their community take risks that might hurt home buyers or neighbors? Yet, even as some fans condemned the Kalamas, others rushed to defend them. On internet forums and Instagram threads, a different perspective emerged. Perhaps Tristyn and Kamohai were victims of a broken system rather than villains. Hawaii's permitting bureaucracy is notorious for being painfully slow. It's not uncommon for a building permit to take many months or even over a year to be approved. In that time, carrying costs and market conditions can make or break a flip. Sympathizers argued that the Kalamas were doing Hawaii a favor by fast-tracking these renovations and getting much-needed housing stock on the market, whereas the city was bogged down in red tape. They're showing how messed up the permit process is, one supporter wrote, suggesting that the real scandal was how government inefficiency forces builders into tough choices. Some even saw the couple as martyrs of progress, paving the way for reform by highlighting the backlog in the system. The debate was heated and polarizing. Were the Kalamas reckless rule breakers endangering others, or savvy problem solvers caught in a bureaucratic vise? Caught in the crossfire, Tristyn and Kamohai Kalama knew they had to respond. And quickly. Later on December 6, 2024, the same day the permit was yanked, the couple issued a lengthy public statement on their social media accounts. In it, they struck a tone of disappointment and measured defiance. They said they were deeply disappointed in the Civil Beat article, calling it misleading and inaccurate. The Kalamas insisted that the story had omitted the full context of their work. They reaffirmed that they do value integrity and would never intentionally jeopardize safety or flout the law. Yes, they acknowledged the permitting process in Honolulu is a challenge, and there's always room for improvement in how they operate. But they portrayed themselves as responsible business owners doing their best under tough circumstances. These claims fail to reflect the full context of the challenges we face or the sincerity of our efforts to comply with all regulations. Their statement read in part, the couple emphasized that they had already taken concrete steps to improve our processes, including no longer working with certain contractors who didn't meet the standards that regulations demand. It was a subtle shift of blame, implying that if mistakes were made, perhaps some hired hands were at fault, not the couple's own ethics. Tristyn and Kamohai closed their message by expressing pride in their Hawaiian roots and community mission. They said everything they've done, on TV and off, was meant to uplift their neighbors and honor the spirit of aloha. As soon as the Kalamas' statement went live, messages of support poured in. Comments flooded their Instagram, not only from fans, but even from fellow HGTV personalities. Brian Kleinschmidt, host of 100 Day Dream Home, wrote to encourage them, suggesting that hardship often comes before a breakthrough and urging them to keep fighting the good fight. Many viewers told the Kalamas to hang in there and not let the critics get them down. "Love you guys and all that you do for our local community," one fan commented. Another wrote, "There's a housing shortage in Hawaii, and you're working to fix old homes for local families. I don't see the government doing anything but adding more red tape." Even as some skeptics inquired about the permit allegations, the overwhelming tone in the Kalamas' social media sphere was positive and supportive. It was clear that a large segment of HGTV's audience and the Kalamas' local community still had their backs. If anything, the controversy seemed to rally their base even closer around them. However, goodwill on Instagram could only go so far. Real-world consequences were already unfolding beyond the glow of the couple's rebuttal. Spurred by the Civil Beat expose, Honolulu's Department of Planning and Permitting began taking a much harder look at every property associated with the Kalamas. What they found wasn't pretty. In the 5 weeks following the December report, the city slapped at least 9 separate violation notices on various Kalama projects for building without a permit. These notices landed on properties owned by the couple, by their business entities, or by people who had bought homes from them. They weren't entirely new. A few violations had been quietly issued earlier in 2024 and were still unresolved. But now the floodgates opened. Almost every week brought another citation. It was as if the city had finally put together the puzzle and realized the scope of the permit dodging. Some of the cases were startling. On one home in Kamohai, inspectors discovered that the Kalama's crew had torn into the house without permits. They partially demolished the structure, began building a large addition, and even kept working after the city posted a stop work order. This flagrant disregard led to mounting fines. The city started assessing daily penalties back in July 2024. And by the time 2025 rolled around, those fines had accumulated to over $30,000. And that house? It was already finished and sold months prior, fetching around $1.5 million, more than $500,000 above its original purchase price. The new owner, understandably alarmed to learn the beautiful remodel they bought wasn't fully legal, contacted the Kalamas. To their credit, the Kalamas agreed to cover any fines related to permitting on that deal. But the damage in many ways was done. A city report noted that the project had involved an unpermitted addition and blatant defiance of enforcement. It's not often that officials see such direct violations, especially from well-known figures. This wasn't some fly-by-night handyman sneaking a deck onto a weekend project, but TV personalities operating out in the open. Digging through records, officials kept finding more. In fact, by the end of 2024, 6 of the 8 houses featured in Season 1 of Renovation Aloha had been hit with formal notices for starting work before permits were approved. The remaining 2? Those hadn't gotten violations only because the Kalamas did at least apply for permits, but even those homes were put up for sale before final city inspections gave the green light. In short, virtually every project shown in the first season had pushed past the boundaries of what the law allowed. The pattern was clear and consistent. Start the renovation as soon as possible, worry about the permits later. It was a gamble, one that had paid off financially for the flippers, but was unquestionably against the rules. Crucially, this wasn't just a bureaucratic issue. It had real impact on real people. Several families who bought Kalama-flipped homes were now left holding the bag. Take the Kalihai house from episode 1, for example. The new owners, a couple named Terry and Andrew, told reporters they began noticing odd problems shortly after moving in. A mildew smell in their child's room led them to discover hidden mold, which then revealed cracks in the structure of the house. These were not minor cosmetic flaws, but symptoms of deeper structural work that might not have been done correctly, work that, as it turned out, had never been inspected or properly permitted. The couple had no idea that much of their house's dramatic renovation had been done outside the legal process. Understandably, they felt misled and worried. By December, after the news broke, the city issued them a notice requiring a retroactive permit for all that undocumented work. So instead of enjoying their beautifully renovated home, these homeowners were now facing a maze of paperwork, surprise costs. Retroactive permit fees in Honolulu cost triple the normal rate, and the frightening possibility that some of the work might not meet safety codes. They even began exploring legal options against whoever might be responsible. Stories like this turned the abstract idea of permit violations into a very personal nightmare for those families involved. Tristyn and Kamohai found themselves in a delicate position, balancing contrition with confidence. They began a charm offensive to reassure everyone that they were handling things. In media appearances, Kamohai expressed dismay at how their story had been portrayed, insisting that Civil Beat's reporting didn't tell the whole truth. On a local talk show in January, he stressed that they have always worked with the DPP and will continue to do so. Yes, he conceded, dealing with permits in Honolulu can be frustrating, but he noted the process was improving and implied that they were cooperating fully to resolve any issues. "We're just going to continue to do what we know is right," Kamohai said firmly, a line clearly meant to project an image of principled persistence. The couple's narrative was that they were problem solvers, not scofflaws. Their goal was to fix up dilapidated homes for the good of the community. And if some paperwork lagged behind, it wasn't out of malice.